KCD, do you in fact have just this portable device when you're having conversations with people, or do you have a home phone, or do your parental units or any other units that are of a generational north of us, do any of them have the home phones?
Oh gosh, no. I do not have a home phone. I don't know if I've had a home phone since I was in high school.
So you're saying like 2 years ago?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I literally just got out. Are you kidding me? No, circa. I graduated high school 2002, so I'll give my age. But I did have a home phone then.
Right.
My grandparents had home phones their entire life. So I did always have that and was like, what is going on? But we're so accessible anyways. We don't need another route to be contacted. So
Well, but this is actually the other route because we had the home phones first, though.
You're right. But since it's more local, I think we should go back to home phone only days, honestly. Like, it's amazing how much this thing dictates our life. I've got it sitting right here. So I'm with you on that. I get it. I'd like to throw it out the window sometimes.
Look, I'm right there with you. But yeah, no, the reason I brought it up was because before you came in this morning, literally, we still have, because of parental units that are just locked into the idea of calling a home phone instead of remembering what your cell phone actually is. And so that's why we still have it here, because parental units will call and we can sit there and look at it and go, yeah, okay, it's them that's calling, and we can pick up instead of somebody who wants to donate, $30 a month for a cause that you have no care about. And they're going to sit there, well, before you go, one of those kind of things.
Yeah. I remember my grandmother would text me. She got a cell phone eventually, and she would just sign her name at the bottom of every text. Like, even in conversation, she would like put her name and what we called her. And it was the cutest thing. She couldn't quite adapt to it, but she was texting, but then would put her name just in case. I didn't know it came from her phone. So it was great.
Someone else who's impersonating someone who's just learning how to text on a phone and getting a cell phone. Not like you didn't figure out who it was in the first place, right?
Yeah. No stone unturned. Good job.
NWSL, and the real reason that we brought you in this morning, you and Jen Hildreth are going to be discussing NWSL this morning as part and parcel to everything. You early, and Jen will be the caboose to all of this. We're down to the final, and if I had told you that this was going to be the final, what would you have told me going into the playoffs?
Would not have been surprised. I don't know how long ago it was that we talked, but I always thought we were talking about Washington versus Kansas City. And I just always felt like the target was on Kansas City, but Washington was so incredibly dynamic and dangerous that I really felt they had a path to the final. Regardless, they weren't going to see Kansas City, and then so I just really felt like they had the way to go. We talked about it last week with Gotham. I think they just play with a chip on their shoulder, but I'll be honest with you, this matchup versus Orlando absolutely took it to them for the majority of the game. They dominated possession, but they had to defend for long periods of time, Gotham, and they just picked a moment, and Jaden Shaw stepped up and was able to convert. But I've never felt like Gotham was an 8 seed. They are a team that, 1 to 8, them falling to the 8 seed just showed and demonstrated the parity of the league, because I never felt that they were an 8 seed. So anyone in their path, it was going to be tough. But Orlando gave them everything they had, but they figured it out.
How difficult is it as a player / coach to be locked in north of 90 minutes? Because, normally 45 minutes, okay, yeah, you're locked in there. You get your regroup at halftime. You get to say as a coach what you want to adjust and everything. Then 45 to 90, what's happening second half. You might be looking at the clock a little bit. It's like, okay, can this thing move any faster? This clock isn't moving fast enough. Can it really move faster? Can we get this over with and get on to the next stage? How difficult is it to maintain focus as a coach and an athlete from 90 to 90 plus whatever until that final whistle goes?
It can be hard. I think it depends on the output of the game. And Gotham had been defending for long periods of time. Orlando had been attacking for long periods of time. And so there's an unconscious thing that can happen where you feel like more of the same is just going to occur. And so it can be a little bit mind-numbing and hard in those moments. But I think a lot of the best players really ramp it up towards the end of games. They realize that these are the moments that other teams are susceptible. and there might be a little bit of a lack of focus or just physical fatigue where there's a foul here, a foul there, things that give another team an advantage. So at the level that these players are at, I think it's very minimal differences because they've been there, they've done that. So they don't really just sit there and go, oh, I'm not going to focus right now. But when fatigue sets in, I think it can affect things.
So when I mentioned this matchup, obviously the atypical 8 being Gotham and the 2 being Washington, and the playoffs in general to this point, who has been your up to this point of the playoff MVP?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think Jaden Shaw and the impact that she's had for Gotham, you have to state her in the conversation because of her ability to get goals and to get assists and being new to the roster. It hasn't been that long that she's been on the roster for Gotham. We all forget about her age. I think maybe it might have been Jen, it might have been Leanne that said it in the broadcast that we kind of forget how young Jaden Shaw is. So not only what she's been able to do and how she's played, but the impact that she's had on this run, I think she really stands out. And then you look at Kwasi, you look at Gift Monday, the combination of those two players. Croy Bethune has stepped up very big. I'm sure there's some defensive ones, but I'm going to go with the attacking ones for the start.
As you should. I mean, that's just kind of how we are. We're offense first team. It's an offense first team.
Exactly.
You mentioned being the new person. How difficult is it being the new kid at school and having to hop in immediately to try to sit there and fit in and then figure out who your personality is and what it can be in a new location? How difficult is it to be the new kid at school?
It's hard for every person to go to a new place, but I think that it takes a special personality to be able to adapt quickly. Some people take longer than others just because of their natural instincts, their personality, what makes them feel comfortable, all those types of things. But sometimes, and I had this happen in my career, when you get traded, you feel like it's a breath of fresh air. So you're bopping around like it's, the first day of school and you're excited. And so it can help the adaptation a little bit easier and you're able to slide in there a little bit easier and have impact right away.
You mentioned age and how Jaden Shaw isn't. There's a player in Orlando, and like I said, I'd love for Marta to write a book or come up with some kind of video tutorial about how to continue to be a top athlete in her sport at the age that she is. And I mean, she's 29, repeating. And for her to continue to be at that level, it's insane to me what she's able to continue to produce, even though this time around Orlando falls just short. Is Marta still underappreciated for what she's able to do at that stage of her life and career?
I don't know if she's underappreciated necessarily, but I do think that people forget the age she's at and how long she's been doing it for. When I played against her in Sweden, I was 22 years old. She would have been 20, and she was playing for Umeå, who was the best team in the Swedish Damallsvenskan. And she, in a lot of ways, impacts the exact same way she did at 20 years old. Her game has changed. I think she would probably say her game has evolved in a lot of ways, and maybe physically she has to do some different things. But I think you're right, honestly, is what she does off the field. Like, what is the cheat code of what she does to make sure that she recovers well? She had the ACL injury. She's come back strong from that. I think it's more of those pieces, the nutrition, how she recovers, what she does, and then the decisions she makes on the field. But I would argue her impact is no different as far as the level of it that she has for any roster that she's on.
She's going to turn 40 in late February, mid-February, February 19th. So next February, she turns 40. How many more years, and this is probably a dangerous question to ask, and I think I know what the answer is going to be and what it should be. How many more years do you think she can compete?
I think she goes through the next World Cup.
Okay.
And I think that's just because it's right there in her mind. She's already knowing she's going to play in the NWSL. So I would think at least 2 more years. I don't know. I think she could go as long as Marta can physically go, to be honest with you. If she still loves the game, if she's still competitive, which obviously she is, we see that, all that passion every time that she plays. But I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the career is, do you still love it? Can you still have impact? And can you still be competitive? And so if she can do all of those things, who knows? Who knows? obviously time catches up with all of us, and it certainly will with Marta as well. But everyone can argue it hasn't yet. So
bite your tongue about catching up with everything. How difficult is it to change your game as you get older, knowing what you can do and what you think you can do end up being two different things? How difficult is it to adjust to who you are, knowing that you were a certain player with a certain approach in one point, and then as you know, you hit your mid-30s, you're asked to do certain things? How difficult is it to change your DNA when it comes to being out there on the field?
It can be incredibly hard to reconcile what your body used to be able to do to what it can do now, speaking as a former athlete, and also to do that on the field as well. But I'm going to argue this. There's so many times I say, gosh, if I could play now with what I know about the game, what I understand about the game, with what I see about the game, the older I get, the more I understand it. Man, I feel like I could go back and be such a better player. Marta's doing that in real time. She's doing that under pressure. So I actually think, too, she understands the game at a higher level than she ever has. She's reconciled in her mind just by watching her performance what she can do. And she's figuring that out and how to put it on the field. So I think she has figured out how to do that and has done it quite seamlessly.
Yep, and it's scary what she's able to still do at the age of 39/40. It's just amazing to see what she is accomplishing, and I know that she wants to wrap up as much as possible, as many titles as possible between the time now and when she retires at the age of 74. Where's your mug, by the way?
Oh, don't worry, it's here.
Just checking.
Got Ramesses.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm in full alum mode for a couple of weeks. It's going to be great until the College Cup. So.
Yeah, I see how this works. Where do you want to start when it comes to the college ranks? You want to start with the women's tournament?
Yes, let's do the women's tournament first.
All right, so let's go bracket. Let's go quadrant by quadrant, and I'll kind of blow through. I'll go through what we've got here, and basically, it's almost like cliffhanger on The Price is Right. Just go stop, and we'll start.
I love that.
All right, so Notre Dame shuts out UIC as the number one upper left. No real shock there. Then it's looking like 2 days' time. So on Thursday at 6, it's Notre Dame and Ohio State. Ohio State shut out the 8th seed Georgia 2-0. I don't know how much of a surprise that is for, Ohio State out of the B1G knocking off Georgia. Baylor advances. Wisconsin advances. You've got chalk there. Florida State takes care of Samford, and it's SAM, not STAN. So Florida State advances. They get the wild card. Lipscomb knocks off Mississippi State in the 6th as 1-0 there. West Virginia advances to take on.
I'm going cliffhanger. I love The Price is Right, so I'm so glad you gave me that opportunity. Since we're talking about my grandparents, that reminds me of them too, growing up. But Lipscomb, I got to catch the last about 30, 35 minutes of that game versus Mississippi State.
Okay.
And they, at times, were literally in a 6-back system and were player for player marking and own goal, all 11. They had earned that first goal, and they sat back, and Mississippi State had a really hard time with speed of play and moving the ball, shift them, or taking on a 1v1. And so I'm only bringing that up, not because Mississippi State did a horrible job with it. It's because that is so incredibly hard to play against. So a team like Florida State, who's going to face them, has to be very careful early. I think if Florida State's sharp, this is a game they're going to win. But if they give up a set piece early, a goal, you just allow a team like Lipscomb to sit in. You can't allow that because they showed that they could sit in and make it very uncomfortable.
Yeah, you had to remind me of that with the alma mater, didn't you?
I know. I don't think it's going to be a problem for Florida State, but I honestly didn't think it was going to be a problem for Mississippi State either. So it's just that first 10 minutes I think Brian Pinsky will focus on to make sure Lipscomb doesn't get any reason to go back into that defensive shape even any more than they already have.
And you keep an underdog in a game, they're going to sit there and grow into it and become more confident and more confident and more confident. And then the heavy favorite's going to sit there and go, uh-oh. You're going to have that uh-oh moment that you've got to navigate to in a match like this.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, so West Virginia, Georgetown, that's upper left. That's the 2-7. That's no surprise. Okay, low left. TCU shuts out Grambling. Memphis, the 7 seed, takes care of Illinois. Texas Tech over Texas San Antonio. The only place apparently that there is no offense in Texas Tech by comparison is on the soccer field because take the over in college football every single week. And then some team called North Carolina took care of business, knocking off the number 3 team in Tennessee 3-1. So North Carolina advances 5 o'clock Eastern time Thursday. Texas Tech the 6, North Carolina. I'm going to stop it here. What's going on?
Well, our conversation last week aged well because they were able to get the win. I really felt that the Tar Heels, if I take off my alum hat and I put on my analyst hat, it is just very hard to win multiple games against top teams unless you are a top four contender, top 5 contender in the country. So I felt this was going to happen, but Tennessee gave them a fight. They came back. North Carolina figured it out. But that matchup with Texas Tech is going to be very difficult. If North Carolina gets through that, I'm quite nervous about the next matchup. But they'll worry about Texas Tech first and then worry about either facing Memphis or TCU. But it is now a bit of a gauntlet. So I think they have a good chance against Texas Tech. So we'll see.
LSU knocks off Houston Christian as the 4. Iowa Chalk knocks off the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State 1-0. So it's the 4 and the 5. And then Del Schaefer, who is based in Charleston, has been waving frantically and pointing at the low left part of the bracket because Clemson, the 8, knocks off Liberty, and Vandy shuts out Tennessee Tech. So Clemson and Vanderbilt, Vandy the 1 seed, 8 o'clock on Thursday night Eastern time.
I was noticing that Del Schaefer was commenting multiple times in a row, so I'm glad we got to this. I'm going to say this. All 9 teams of the ACC advanced through the first round, the only conference to do that. The SEC only had 4 of their teams advance through. So this just speaks – Del's laughing now. It speaks to what the ACC does and what it prepares you for. So that being said, I'm an ACC gal. I would love nothing more than to see Clemson be able to pull off this upset. Vanderbilt, though, did go through a hard SEC tournament. They're playing extremely well. But when you go to the first round and you see that only 4 advanced out of the first round of the NCAAs, was it that hard of a gauntlet? I don't know. It was, yes, but maybe not as hard as we would have originally thought. So I think there's an opening here.
All right. Right-hand side of the bracket, we'll start upper right. The interlopers in the ACC and Stanford are the 1, and they get Alabama, who win over Northwestern in PKs in a 1-8. So Chalk comes through there late night on Thursday, Friday, if my math is right. Yeah, Friday night. Friday night, Stanford and Alabama. Then you've got BYU, who advances in PKs over the Aggies of Utah State, UCLA over Pepperdine. So the 4-5 and the 1-8, you get Chalk there. Then you end up with Colorado as the 3, more Chalk. Xavier knocks off Dayton, so the 3 and the 6. And then Wake, a 2-1 winner over South Carolina. Michigan State, a 4-1 winner over Milwaukee. So Chalk upper right, where everybody works their way through in the seeds. Wake the 7 and Michigan State is the 2 seed. That's dinner time on Thursday.
I think that's going to be a hard one for Wake Forest. I don't know what the ceiling is for Wake Forest, but it's NCAA tournament time, so anything can happen. That's what happens in soccer. One day there can be this magnetic field around the goal and teams won't score, but it'll go the opposite direction. So you never know. I have a hard time seeing Stanford lose. I really like Alabama. I think that they're a very good team. But Stanford just scores so many goals. So you have to almost come up against a team that can score just as many. That's why a team like Virginia and Notre Dame gave them runs for their money in the ACC tournament, because they could also score a lot of goals. But no one is figuring out how to stop Stanford, and I don't necessarily think Alabama's going to be able to, but we'll see.
All right, so then put on your coach's hat. How do you stop Stanford?
Oh, pray. No, just kidding. I think with Stanford, they play a really interesting 4-3-3. And what I mean by that is they commit so many numbers high. Their 2 attacking midfielders almost play on the front line. So at times they have 5 across the front line. I do think you play your normal system. You just have to get pressure to their outside backs a little bit, because otherwise, if you play a 5-back, like a lot of people want to do and just sit back, then they're just raining balls in on your penalty box. So that really doesn't work. That's what Virginia did at first. I think you have to go at them and try to score goals as well. So sitting back is not the normal thing that works with Stanford, like a Lipscomb did with Mississippi State.
See, that was what I was going to ask. If somebody like a Lipscomb sits back and just has 6, then you're saying just, work your way around that 6. I literally was going to ask about Lipscomb and do something like that back 6. If you had that 6-pack at the back, then you would combat it.
If you are very good at defending in your box, you could roll the dice and you could do that for sure. But there's going to be so many times that they're just going to rain balls in or dribble right at you. And they have the individual players to outplay. The thing Mississippi State wasn't doing is they weren't dribble penetrating to pull people out. So I think Stanford has the quality to do that.
Low right, it's all chalk. Duke over Elon, UCF over Maine. So that's your 2-7 at 6:30. Louisville and Kentucky. Yeah, we didn't plan that one for the opening round. PKs, Louisville takes the Duke there. They win in PKs. It was 1-1 after regulation. Kansas over Cal Baptist. So that's your 3-6. Louisville and Kansas at 4 o'clock Thursday afternoon. Washington shuts out the Grizz. They're going to take on Arkansas in a 4-5. Arkansas beat the Mean Green of Dartmouth. I don't know how green can be mean, but okay. And then Penn State knocked off Army to have the 8 advance. Virginia knocks off High Point 5-0, put 5 on the board there. So it's all chalk, low right as well.
Kansas Louisville, I think, is an interesting game. It's almost, for me, a battle of conferences a little bit. Kansas has been really good in conference. They're a higher seed. Louisville has had to go through the ACC, made the ACC tournament, which we know is incredibly hard to do, especially since the 9 ACC teams are still in the NCAA. So I think that matchup is going to tell us a lot about the conferences. And I'm always interested to see that because I have an innate bias to the ACC, of course, having played in this. I mean, if you didn't notice, I try to, I'm letting my biases fly the last 2 weeks because I can. I normally have to be very careful with that. But I do think the ACC will win out. I think Louisville will win that game, but I still will be interested to see if Kansas is that good. On the other side, I think Penn State, Virginia as well. I have a lot of respect for Penn State. I love Virginia. Steve Swanson does a great job with that team. They went toe-to-toe with Stanford after a tough first half in the ACC semifinals, but Penn State is always well organized. They play a great style. They've been tested this year, so that could be a tough one for Virginia.
All right, so then give me a couple of teams, if we get to a couple, that could be those upset specials while you're sitting there and you're kicked back and Owen is demanding TREATs and scritches. While you're watching all of this action, you have the multi-screen experience going on. You've got every computer, you've got everything all fired up. We know who the favorites are going to be, obviously, when it comes to rankings and things.
Right.
Who's got the tough matchups? Who could step on a rake here in the second round?
Well, I honestly believe that the Memphis TCU game, TCU needs to be careful with Memphis. I've always said I really like Memphis as a non-Power 4 conference. It's the style they play. It's the grit that they play with. And they did fall in their own tournament. It went to penalty kicks. So they're not unscathed. And I love TCU. I think Eric Bell's done a phenomenal job there. And they've had a great season. But anyone playing Memphis, I always am like, watch out. They're a little scary. Their bench is screaming constantly, let's go. And it's just fiery. And so if you let them stay in games or they get that first goal, they're incredibly hard to play against. Super athletic, going forward, pressing high. That could be one that would be an upset for sure that I think they need to watch out for. Other than that, I don't see a lot of upsets. I will say I think North Carolina can beat Texas Tech. I think it's that next round that could be a trip for North Carolina against a Memphis or a TCU. So those would be my two. All the rest, I think, are either very tight, like a 4-5, whatever the case may be, or the top seed, to me, would be the clear winner.
Yep, and just kind of going through the men's bracket here, it finally has popped out after we finally had all of our Division I conference championships. SoCon had a golden goal, and Furman knocks off NC Greensboro. And it's not a full bracket where you have everybody playing everybody out of the blocks. You have first round buys and you have all this kind of stuff. The Clemson men are playing Western Michigan, and the winner of that one gets the 16 seed Furman on the weekend. Furman comes in as a 16 seed winning the SoCon. And it's all geographically based. So Indiana's your overall 6. Princeton's an overall 3. Good for the Ivy League to get that high. SMU's a 5. Stanford's a 12. Maryland's a 4. North Carolina, North Florida on the men's side, 6 o'clock. You're going to have a busy Thursday with all of your devices up.
I am.
North Carolina, North Florida on the men's side, 6 o'clock Thursday night. Winner of that one gets the 4 seed Maryland in the overall. NC Greensboro, who made it to the championship game in the SoCon and is a certifiable pain in the you-know-what, gets Elon on 5 o'clock Eastern Thursday. Winner of that one gets number 2 Virginia. NC State, your 15. So, I mean, you have teams, once again, out of the ACC that are making seeded runs, but you've got a Furman who's a 16, and they're a pain. And then you've got a High Point that's a 10 and Princeton that's a 3. You got some atypical Go 5 conferences that are in those seeded spots that get to watch for a little bit.
And that's an advantage to be able to sit and watch and to have a little bit of a break, especially because it's quick. It's not the longest break in the world. And so if it's really long, then you start to get out of form a little bit. But I think that's a lot of fun. Got to shout out my hometown team, SMU, won the ACC men's. I'm from Arlington, Texas, grew up around SMU, and they had a phenomenal performance. They did get a penalty kick to win, but to take on a Virginia team is really tough. First ACC championship in any sport for SMU in the second year. So that was exciting to see. Now it's, how do you follow that up? Are they that good? Or is it that first round of one that'll trip them up a little bit? I think that's always scary. That's my coach come out of. They need to really lock in because it can be super fun and you can get this overinflated view of where you're at. So how do you use the confidence, but also not think that you're just going to win? It's just going to happen.
A coeducational institution of higher learning in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed this. I'm going to get your NWSL prediction here in a second.
Okay.
Off of my shoulder here on the framing, right here.
Okay.
This frame. How well do you know the Pony Express years and follow along with Dickerson, James, and all of that? How deep into that football are you?
Not that deep.
Okay. No worries, because this is, and it's one of the best documentaries that ESPN ever put out in the 30 for 30 series about when SMU football got the death penalty back in the 80s. This is the quarterback that handed the ball off to Eric Dickerson and Craig James during those years. Lance McElhenney. It is an autographed Lance McElhenney SMU football jersey right there.
Nice. Okay. Very cool.
And so it was up for auction, and literally because of that storyline with SMU and the football team getting the death penalty, and I was like, oh, there's the quarterback. And so obviously, I could not resist getting this autographed jersey of the SMU quarterback from Legends Glory.
I do know the death penalty. I do understand that. I do know what that is, but not well versed. When you asked me if I was well versed, I was like, I can't say yes because he's going to quiz me on this.
No, he's not. I just didn't know how in depth you knew about like Dave Richards and Eric Dickerson and all that kind of stuff. All right, who's going to win NWSL final?
Washington Spirit.
Okay.
I'm going with them. But if I sit here next week and Gotham won, I will not be surprised in the slightest. Sometimes you just have it going for you and you just have it running a little bit, and they definitely have that. But I think Washington Spirit's going to be incredibly hard to beat. We'll see how Adriana Gonzalez handles Trinity Rodman. She hasn't been playing. It's very hard when you have a star on the bench that's coming back. It's a little bit of playing time. Do you start her? When do you bring her in? Because you don't also want to mess up with the way that they're playing, because they're playing incredibly great. So that's a tough one. But I think that Washington Spirit has the ability to pull it out.
Yep, and we're going to keep an eye on that as we go. As always, it's great to catch up with you, Bat and Leadoff, on Tuesdays. What's your tailgating experience going to be when you're watching all the soccer this week?
Oh, it's going to be right here. Well, not in this seat, in my comfy couch, watching with my puppy next to me. I'm going to have my TV on. I'm going to have my laptop. I may even have my phone. We'll see. I probably won't, because I'll probably be texting people about the results, but I'll just be flipping through games. That's for sure. So Thursday night, check in.
Yep, and we're going to see all of those pictures on social. Casey D, it's always great to see where you be and what's on your mind. We'll catch up with you next week. We'll talk more soccer and the college and the women's and the NWSL. Great to see you.
You too. Have a good one.